going on, guys? It's your boy Jay Shane, the Keto Road, here for number 2 of a 3-part series on digestion. Now, last week we talked about the mouth, the esophagus, and the stomach, and the implications of when we are distracted while we're eating, when we're drinking fluids too much while we're eating and not really enjoying our food, and how that can cause heartburn and acid reflux, and how it's a misconceived notion that too much stomach acid causes those things, but really it's not enough, and you improperly eating and it causing that stuff to get pushed up into your esophagus. Now, so what I want to focus on in this video is the intestinal tract, and understand, I'm going to tell you kind of what the intestinal tract does, and then we're going to talk about how this issue, so last week, if you remember, we talked about right here is all this food that's not getting digested properly, and it's sitting in your gut, and it's fermenting and going rancid and way too alkaline. It's not getting acidic enough. And so we're going to talk about how that causes issues in your intestinal tract. So first, let's look at what the intestinal tract does. So the intestines, right? So the small intestines, there's a little sphincter here. So sphincters are enclosed areas that have to get pushed through to get released certain amounts of acidity or alkalinity or enzymes will release these things. And basically, it goes into the duodenum and then enters into the small intestine. So the small intestine, basically its job is to extract all the nutrients you're going to use from the food that you're eating. So the body puts the food in the form of chyme into the small intestine, and then based off the acidity and things like that, different enzymes will be released, biles, other things like that, to extract the nutrients from the food and then take it through the intestinal wall. Now, so the intestinal wall has these little line things that come out, right? These are called villi. At least I think that's how you pronounce it. V-I-L-I-S. So basically, the nutrients gets extracted from the food and gets pulled through those into the intestinal wall, into the bloodstream, and then gets taken to the liver or wherever they're going to be going. That is how nutrients travels through our intestinal wall, right? So then it goes to the small intestine, and then any food that's not absorbed or any waste will go through the large intestine, through the colon, and then through the anus. So understand that when it's in the large intestine, its job is certain enzymes are released to take the inorganic matter or the waste matter and produce things like vitamin K and things like that our body uses, right? And so we see that every single part of the digestive system has a place. Okay? Every single system has a place and it has a duty. And if any one of those are disrupted, it can cause an issue such as acid reflux or heartburn, right? So let's talk a little bit about what happens when that issue goes into the small intestine. Okay, so you have fermented food, right? You have fermented carbs and rancid fats, and they're not getting broken down because it's too alkaline, right? So because it's too alkaline, it's not getting triggered to open up in the duodenum into the small intestine. So it's just sitting there, right? So finally, it gets through. Your body finally lets it through, halfway broken down, but it's waste. They've got to get it out. They've got to absorb it. Your system waits, and then it just goes. So now it's in the small intestine at a very high acidity. Understand that one of the systems in your small intestine is one where your food will come in as chyme around 1.5 to 3.0 acidic, right? Which is very acidic. Your body will release enzymes to raise the alkalinity up of that acidic chyme, and that will allow enzymes to be extracted. So when that doesn't happen, those chains of commands aren't released. And so some of the enzymes don't get released. And so not only do you have a food that's not properly broken down, but some of the chain of command is discombobulated. So there's error in communication, right? And so now not only do you have food that's not broken down, but you have an error in communication. And so you have less enzymes and less broken down food. You see, this is literally a formulation for disaster. And so as it's passing through the gut, these enzymes are pulling these not broken down all the way particles. So what we would consider inappropriate sized particles through the villi. So while maybe it should be the size of a dime, obviously it's way smaller than this. I'm just using this for retrospect. So the hole is the size of a dime, and it's pulling particles the size of a quarter through it, right? Inappropriate sized molecules of nutrients. And so what happens is these get really inflamed. And just like a Venus flytrap, they start to close off. So they close off and close off and close off, and now you've got like you have this wall built of inflammation in the intestinal lining, right where the villi were, due to the inappropriate molecules going through. when that happens, you become malnourished. You're not able to absorb the food properly. This is also a precursor for a lot of things like IBD, IBS, SIBO, Crohn's disease. There's a lot of things that are caused from this. And it all starts from this. It all starts, a lot of it, I'm not joking, can start from you looking at your phone while you're eating. That could be a big issue with your digestive system. I am not kidding. And so understanding that that small thing has that big of an implication, right? So now we're not getting properly nutrients, right? We're not getting things properly absorbed. So the food isn't considered waste. It's just this big heap of mess. It goes through the large intestines, and now enzymes aren't being released because it's not triggering some of those. And so vitamin K is not being properly made. So now you're deficient in vitamin K. So now you gotta take all these supplements for vitamin K, and then it passes through and it's waste. Other things can happen like stearrhea. Stearrhea is where rancid fats don't get absorbed, and so they make your fecal matter oily. And so you literally, like, if you have bad diarrhea, it's because you're eating fats and they're not getting properly digested. It's called stearrhea. That's a legit issue, right? And so things like that happen when we're not properly focused on our digestion. And we see it riddled in the literature. And so what can happen is, and this is where it's important to understand, and we'll get into the gut microbiome next video a little bit more in depth, but understand that, okay, so how this reflects on weight loss. So let's say you're trying to lose weight, right? This may be why you're not losing weight. I'm not kidding. Why? So you have to understand that when your body's in a deficit, it's on a survival mode anyways. It's trying to survive. It's not trying to thrive. And so at first it will let go of a lot of body fat, but after a while it's going to get a little aggressive with trying to retain it. It's natural. It's normal. On keto, you preserve muscle better and you're more apt to use fatty acids, but your body's still trying to survive. So understand that if you are not eating properly and you're not digesting the food properly, you're not absorbing properly. And because that's happening, your body is in a very much a survival mode. It doesn't have the vitamins it needs. It doesn't have the minerals it needs. Your body is literally freaking out. And so it's going to hold on to that fat harder. It's going to hold on to it stronger. And it's going to try and extract vitamins from other areas. And it's just crazy. It's crazy how much malnourishment can bother a weight loss journey, an overall health journey. Like, this stuff is powerful, profound, and it is very much part of the diet, right? And it's a part of the health journey, and it's something that we have to consider. So, what do we do to handle this? So we know from last week that we talked about the stomach out. Then you haven't seen that one, I definitely encourage you to go see it. We understand that we should not be distracted while we eat. Right? We should not look at our phones, not watch TV. We should chew our food, enjoy our meal. We shouldn't chug a lot of liquids before we eat or during our meal, maybe a swig afterwards to wash it all down. But you should trust your salivary glands and your chewing to get the food down for you. That's going to help increase the acidity of your stomach acid due to you focusing on it. And then it's also going to increase the lubrication of the food to help it get down. And then because you're not drinking, you're not taking a chance on diluting your stomach acid. So we see like a win-win-win here. Properly digesting things, okay? Now, what kind of foods should we eat to help with this? So understand that there's this one thing with veganism, right? They have a niche. Yes, vegans have niches. One of them is called alkaline veganism, which is basically where you only eat foods that are alkaline on the alkaline scale. The problem with that thought process is that you actually need your food to be very acidic. And while that works for them, it's because most of them actually focus on their food. There's other things that they're doing around their diet that are allowing them to properly digest their food. But understand your food has to be extremely acidic to pass through into the duodenum, into the small intestine, and actually be properly absorbed. So focusing on whole foods, right? That's why a ketogenic diet is great, because you're gonna have, if you do have vegetables, they're gonna come with fat soluble fats, or fats that help break down fat soluble vitamins. You're gonna have more bioavailable meats and proteins, more vitamins that are easily absorbed, especially if you have gut issues. If you have gut issues, you want the easily absorbable foods you can find. Meat is the most easily absorbable food you're gonna find when it comes to bioavailability of nutrients and minerals. So that's why you see a lot of people that have gut issues, when they go on carnivore, they don't have the gut issues anymore. Because not only are they probably going to be focusing on their food more because they're being more health conscious, but also the foods that they're eating are easier broken down and easier absorbed. And so that's why we see such an amazing benefit on the carnivore diet. At least that's my theory. So I think that, whole foods, lots of meat products, Not necessarily dairy, but like meats, muscle meats, organ meats, things like that that have very bioavailable nutrients are really going to help pull properly sized molecules through your villi. It's going to help put more nutrients in your bloodstream through your intestinal wall. It's going to release the inflammation in your intestinal tract, and you're going to see a lot of those issues like the SIBO and the leaky gut start to deplenish, right? But it starts with the head and then the food that's on your plate, and both of those together are going to help give you a better digestive tract, right? So that's all for this video, guys. Stick around for number 3. Number 3, we're going to be talking about the bacteria in your gut and how that can affect your mental, your weight loss. There's a lot of things it affects, so I definitely encourage that you watch that one if you've been enjoying the series. Till next time, love you guys. Peace out.